Hey folks, it's Yannick Gwizdala. It's the Yannick Gwizdala podcast. If you are just listening, if you're on the audio portion of the podcast, I will advise you that this one's going to be quite a visual episode. So if you want to see all the goodies, if you want to see the build of this mini touring pedal board that I'm putting together this episode, head over to the YouTube channel and come check out the video side of things. Going to be really going into some detail on some of the choices I made, why I made them. You'll be able to see visually why I made them as well. It's very important. Space is limited. As always, it's amazing, right? It doesn't really matter how huge or how small the board is. There's always a millimeter here or there that you're like, damn it, if I just had that little bit more space, I could have that extra pedal that, yeah, okay, maybe I don't necessarily need. So there was a lot of that went into this build. And I'm going to go over it in great detail because I'm actually going to build it. I've actually got I don't actually have the dual lock. Oh, it's behind me. I forgot to put it on the desk, but I'm going to get that in a second because I'm actually going to do the whole build during the episode while discussing all the options and all the things I kind of tried and ultimately failed with and why I ended up with what I ended up with, and specific to the gig I'm doing with the Brecker Brothers just next week in Morocco. Before we get started on the build, I got to tell you that I just had a massive delivery of all the good stuff, all the better stuff, all the good stuff. It was the first music book I put out. I think I did the first version in like 2012, and one of the Brecker Brothers tunes is at the end. Is it Rocks? I think it's the end of Rocks. There's one lick. It's kind of a ball buster, actually, like a finger twister right at the end of that tune. And I was had this little injury with the right hand, just generally moving house and doing all this other stuff. Haven't really been in the greatest playing shape the last few days, and found I was going all the way back to this book, to all the good stuff. Not only is it the first book I wrote, it has a bunch of the things I've been using for warm-ups, for exercises, for finger strengthening stuff for almost 30 years. That's just a little aside there because that made me think of how old some of this stuff is, but how relevant it stays, even when I'm literally working on learning music for a gig next week. So anyway, physical copies, I got a ton of them here in the studio now of both the good stuff and the better stuff. They ship worldwide, signed copies, of course. You can get unsigned physical copies at Amazon, and of course the digital copies at my website. They all come with videos, play-alongs, all of that stuff. Now let's get to the build and let's start talking about what I have on this board and why I chose what I chose. Let's start unplugging things, because it's just, I always do a kind of a mock-up before I get to this point right here. I make sure everything fits, and I plug all the cables in. It's super important to know. I'm trying to lose my keyboard here to give me a bit more space. It's really important to know that I do actually have the space. And sometimes, right in the beginning when I was first building pedal boards, maybe you found yourself doing this as well. You throw all the pedals on there and you think, oh great, it all fits, and then you're like, oh shit, I have to plug them in, and yeah, the power goes in exactly the wrong place where you don't want it on a certain pedal. Anyway, I guess the first thing was I knew I wanted the HX Stomp in the center of it all as the sort of the brains of the operation. That was the really only known entity besides the power, of course. Let me hold this up. It's the Chox 4. Really simple little power supply. It does, quote unquote, only have 4 outlets on it, and the HX Stomp is 1,000 milliamps. It's a 1 amp draw. So for that, you need this little Y cable, so you can get 2 of the Chox outputs. Each of the outputs come with 600 milliamps. It's a really powerful little power supply. And you get this Y cable that goes into this yellow cable and gives you access to 2 spots to drive the very power thirsty, well, compared to all the other pedals, the very power thirsty HX Stomp. So unfortunately that takes up 2 of the 4, and initially that wasn't going to be a problem. And here we go into the choices and all of the directions I've been in so far, because I was going to use the Teletronics TDI. Of course, that's like near and dear to my heart, even more so recently with the big sale and getting it out there to you guys. And it's simple. What I wanted was something simple, but it is significantly wider than what I ended up choosing, which, spoiler alert, I guess it's been in the shot the whole time now. I actually ended up choosing for this gig next week the MXR bass preamp / DI. Has a DI there. It also has the preamp. I don't know how much of the preamp I'm going to use, but I definitely wanted the DI with me. And who knows, when I get to the stage, it's a festival stage in Morocco. Who knows? There are going to be plenty of variables. Maybe the monitor is amazing. Maybe it sounds like dog shit. So I might need to work the EQ a little bit, so why not have it there? But definitely the primary concern was the footprint. That's why I ended up going with this. The bonus is the fact that it has some EQ. I would have loved to have taken the Teletronics TDI, especially right now. I would have loved to have had that out with me, but just a little bit wide. It hangs over the end of the board, as you can see in the shot there, when I have everything else that I need. Another contender was, of course, the JHS Color Box, which has been on my main touring board, the much bigger board that goes in the Pelican. I've had that out this entire I've had that pedal board out this entire year, and for the last couple of months I've had the JHS Color Box in there. It's been phenomenal. But again, not only is it quite wide, I think it's same width as the TDI, but it's longer than the pedal board is deep. So I didn't want any overhang on that. Similar situation with the Caveman BP1 Compact. It was another option. I was like, oh, maybe I'll just have the preamp and preamp DI, whatever, and the HX Stomp, and I won't have any external pedals. That would have fitted. It just about goes on there. It's just about the same width as the pedal board, but it's a little chunky, it's a little big. And in the end, musically, I really needed an octave pedal and I needed an envelope filter. Envelope filter is not something I normally put on the board that often, especially not the MXR bass envelope filter. I've used that very rarely for gigs like this, but there's just a couple of things that Will Lee did back in the day in the 70s. He used, I spoke to him on the phone actually a couple of times this week, and we were talking about what he used. I thought it might have been the Mutron. I may even have said that on a previous podcast, but it was actually the Sea Moon Funk Machine, which they did make a reissue of. I believe actually that Neil Jason was instrumental in making that reissue happen. Maybe he even designed it, something like that. I know he was definitely involved, and sounds great. I don't have one. It's a much smaller footprint than the old one. That would have been awesome to have one of those to kind of be in the original vein of what Will did. But the MXR, the bass envelope filter, comes really close to that sound. And trust me, I really tried to do that with the Stomp. I tried to program it to get the womp womp, but there's one thing in the Stomp for me that is a little bit lacking still. I think it's probably going to improve in the not too distant future. I'm kind of confident that, in a digital unit you can create great filters. I just don't think it's been much of a priority for Line 6 to this point, and at any time I can, I'll badger them to make it a priority. I'd love to see an array of synth-like filter options. Of course, you have to know how to use them. Maybe there's a bit of a barrier to entry in terms of experience and knowledge that you might need to really use a slightly more complex set of filters. But having some useful presets that are sort of plug and play that get people 80% of the way there, and then they can tweak their sounds would be a great way to do it. Have something that is complex but easy to enter. So I'm definitely going to be campaigning for that over the coming months and years when it comes to the Stomp, because I would love to have that sound inside and not have to take a pedal. That's just more real estate. And then, the octave pedal is just super trusty. It is, as I've said many times before, my exact Japanese OC2 from 1982, cloned. That's what they used to make the vintage bass octave MXR. They borrowed my exact pedal. So that has been on my board so much, actually, since the pedal came out. It's just a tiny version. It's one of those small chassis pedals that does everything you want it to do. It has the OC2 sound. It has the bitey mid-range octave sound if you want it. And I do sometimes. There are a couple of things with Vital Information I use that sound on. So that was going on. I kind of wish, maybe, I don't think there is, but I kind of wish they could do a miniaturized bass envelope filter. I think I would use this pedal way more if it could possibly be in this chassis. I don't see why not. Maybe there'll have to be one less or two less controls on it, but that's fine. or maybe just a different way of controlling the different elements of the pedal. I don't know. But MXR, if you're listening, make a miniature version of that. I think it would be a knockout pedal. So these were the two kind of essentials. It ended up being 3 MXR pedals. I don't think I've ever done that on a pedal board before. These 3, the vintage bass octave, the bass envelope filter, and the bass preamp. Those ended up being the choices. Despite, like I said before, the TDI, the color box, the BP1 compact. I even still have the Jad Freer capo here. That's what Ian Martin Allison has on his board, which I think is on this exact mono chassis here, and goes in the mono tick. This was unfortunately just a loaner, though. That's actually going back. I'm mailing them, shipping that back out to them tomorrow. So sadly, that wasn't an option to go on the board. And to be fair, on this board, it would have been just a little big for what I'm looking for. Of course, there's the bass rig from Origin Effects. The Super Bass Rig Super Vintage that I still have from the DI shootout. It is an awesome pedal. I just wasn't really looking for that SVT sound for this trip. And again, it's a little bit long. It is just longer than this tiny pedal board is deep. So I did consider all of those things. I shuffled tons of stuff around, and you know what? I was like, okay, let me see. Can I get something really extra tiny on there? Maybe I want a preamp or something like that, something with a little extra flavor. I looked at the Exotic, the EP Booster that I've used in the past a lot. And then I found the DB925, the Aguilar, this little miniature pedal. I was like, oh, maybe I could make that work. I think this was before I chose the envelope filter. I was going to have vintage bass octave, the Aguilar, the preamp, and the TDI on the back. And then finally I was like, no, definitely got to have the bass envelope filter. So the Aguilar went by the wayside, and here we are. This is the final layout, and the order of pedals will be octave, envelope filter, into the HX Stomp, and that comes out into the MXR bass preamp. I can't even get this Stomp off the board now. Come on. And this board, I don't know whether it came pre-laid with Velcro. Not a massive fan of straight up Velcro. I like to use the dual lock. And we might be vamping for for longer than anticipated here in the podcast while I try and get rid of these massive strips of this. Got my trusty Swiss Army knife. And I'll tell you why. What I really wanted to do was make kind of a really detailed, beautifully shot close-ups, macro lens, motorized slider, slow-mo things. Like, do one of those really well-produced videos, the making of this board, and this is actually coming off pretty nicely. Do one of those, like, lots of B-roll and fancy music and transitions and all that stuff. Here. Do that Velcro ASMR episode. There it is. Now it's stuck to my hand. Really wanted to do that, and I just had to. You get those moments where you just have to admit to yourself that there simply isn't time. As you can see, I'm still surrounded by the chaos of not having finished building the studio. I don't really have a good shooting space to produce something like that anyway, and I need this freaking board like done. I can't make it a 2-week long project. I actually these are for practical reasons. It's like I can't say I dig internet musicians. I can't say I really don't like the concept of that. It's maybe because it's such a foreign concept to me, because what I started out doing, as soon as I started playing the bass, I started to play live, and that just meant so much to me. But I gotta say, there are moments when I have ideas like, "Ooh, it'd be nice to shoot this cool video," where I do envy the. It's not the blissful ignorance. It's just, I guess, the completely different concept of internet musicians, where they just have nothing but time and everything revolves around the product for the internet. And I was going to say unfortunately, but I think actually fortunately, my life doesn't revolve around the internet, and I do actually have gigs and real life use cases for all of this stuff. So all that to say, it would have been nice to make a fancy video, but I need this bloody thing working and finished like immediately. because I got to get on a plane in a few days. And there's the other thing of sort of rehearsing with it as well. You know, it's really simple. There are only 4 units on it. I don't even need to use them all the time. But I've really been used to the layout of this board for the past 6-7 months, the bigger one, and I kind of know where everything is. I've got a little switcher on it. I have kind of presets built out with real pedals, not just presets within the Stomp. So I think it's really important. I think it's something that often gets overlooked, is the element of, oh yeah, you got to learn all this music for the gig. Okay, great. You can learn the music, you can figure out the difficult bits, you can play the songs back to back, you can create set lists, and you can just play the music over and over and over and over again. And that's really good. That's really good practice. It's what we should be doing before a gig to prepare. Then there's the X factor of, well, then you're going to be on stage, then you're actually going to be playing with other people where their time moves here and there. It's not static like a record where it's exactly the same every time you jam along to it. And the variables of, open air festival, sheet music, is it clipped in? Does the middle page of a 5-page tune just fly off into the ocean halfway through the song? All of those little things that come into effect. And then you're like, okay, can I find the envelope filter right when I need it? And can I turn the frickin' thing off when I don't? And am I going to make sure I just turn off that pedal and not accidentally hit the octave pedal the way it's laid out on the board? So there's a whole other layer of practice and preparation that maybe gets a little bit overlooked sometimes. And that's the implementation of the peripherals, shall we say. Oh, I've got to implement some liquid here. I've also got to take a 3-second pause and go back here and get my door lock to start this build. Okay, so I think the Stomp has dual lock on the bottom already, which is great. That's one less task. And for those of you who haven't seen this Stomp, the white one I have here, I've got the Pedalnetics, what is it called? The Helloxy Duo Mini, I think it's called. Just this add-on that you plug in through the expression input, and gives me access to foot switch 4 and 5. Really cool. I also just bought another one in black for my other Stomp, because once I get this little board built, I'd love to just have it. You know what I mean? I'd love to have it to go anytime I want. And thankfully, I have doubles of every pedal. I think this guy. Oh, I don't have 2 MXR bass preamps. Maybe I'll get another one of those to leave on this board. But yeah, it'd be great just to have this so I didn't have to take it apart, and it was always a grab and go thing. And I think I'll probably put my other Stomp on there, my other regular Stomp. But I think I've got so used to that Pedalnetics add on the 4 and 5 foot switch. I think I should have them on all of the Stomps. So that's on its way. Don't think it'll get here in time for Morocco, but we'll add that soon for sure. Okay, this has dual lock on the bottom, so don't need to do that. The MXR has it also. Great. So that's 2 out of the 4 that have it already. So I've got to get the bass preamp and I've also got to take the little, I'm always in 2 minds about this. I have to take the little rubber feet off the bottom, of course. But it does kind of detract from the originality of the pedal. Oh, well, these aren't museum pieces. Not yet anyway. So let's use them the way they were intended, which is for the music, not for the look. And who knows, maybe I'm committing this one to a little pedal board, so it doesn't matter about the bottom of it anyway. Big fan of dual lock. I get a lot of comments, when I talk about, when I think out loud and discuss pedal board solutions. I get a lot of comments from you guys on the channel under the videos saying, hey, a lot of people talking about Temple boards actually. And I've seen them, just wanted to address that. No slight towards Temple at all. I think it's a great idea, and I think it works really well for a lot of people. Just not so much for me, personal preference thing, I guess. I much prefer the dual lock thing, and it's rarely... Actually, I'm not sure it's ever failed, to be honest. That's both amazing, and it's also frightening just to think about what the hell it is 3M put into the adhesive on these things. It's not a great look, but there it is. I try and use it sparingly and recycle it. And I mean, it's crazy. Like this White Stomp, for instance, has had the same dual lock on it since the only set of dual lock I've put on this White Stomp is still there and still going strong, still completely adhesed. Very, very happy with that. So I only have to replace the bottom, which is nice. Minutely more environmentally friendly, I guess, on some level, but I guess quite insignificant in the grand scheme of things. It's all pretty bad. Okay, so just 2 pieces. I also like the fact that, like this, I'm only cutting 2 small squares. Look at that. For a pedal, rather than making an entire strip down the bottom of Velcro, which I used to do, and I still see a lot of people do now. Really feels like there's no need for that. And plus, there isn't surface area on this mono board. You know, there are holes in it, so you can really design it and get really accurate with where your dual lock goes. I think that's a great feature of this thing. You really only have to put it in a few places to be super effective. Having said that, I'm talking so much, I'm not really concentrating on where the hell it actually has to go. Okay, great. So I can put one up top in the middle and then one down the bottom. Thankfully, I've only got to do it for 2 pedals, so you only have to sit here and listen to me prattle on and tread water podcasting wise for 2 pedals. There's one, and I always get a little bit nervous. That's a little dramatic, but the most stressful part of it is the fitting it all together, I think. And it always seems to be that no matter how much I plan, like I was talking about before, put all the pedals on there, make sure you have the power and the patch cables plugged in so you know the size. It always seems to move, or you plant the dual lock in just a millimeter or 2 off and it throws the whole thing out of whack. That tends to happen, and that maybe it just bugs the shit out of me more than it worries me. But it is definitely a thing. Don't do too many live running commentaries on pedal board builds like this. Normally I film it as a time lapse and then go back and watch it and do the voiceover afterwards. So much easier like that, because I can sit back and see like, oh shit, yeah, I was doing that and this and the other. And in the moment I forget a whole bunch of things that I should probably talk about. But that's what the comments are for. If you have questions about this stuff, please drop them in the comments. I really try my hardest to reply to absolutely everything that gets left. Unless it's some knucklehead shit. We had some of that recently. Not great, guys. Gotta have just a little bit of class when you leave comments. I don't think that's too much to ask. And here we go. We're gonna do I try and do the extremities, and now my computer monitor has switched itself off. Great. Okay. Try and do the extremities of the board. Start one side. I'm going to start down the DI side and get it as flush as possible. I kind of rehearse. You see what I'm doing? I'm like rehearsing. I'm like, okay, I'm going to put it down here. I'm going to use my hand as a guide just to try and avoid that little 1, 2, 3 millimeter shift when I finally plant the adhesive. All right, let's try this. Let's see. And 3, 2, 1. Vamos. Okay, bueno. Muy bien. Okay, so that's good. It's amazing how I knew I was gonna do that. What an idiot. I guess it doesn't matter, does it? I thought it would be cool to have the mono logo out front, and I somehow managed to turn the board around, I guess, when I was taking the Velcro off earlier, and now it's facing me. I guess, well, that's just it. I'm not going to redo that. I'm not burning more dual lock. No, thank you. So now we come across maybe the hardest part when I'm not making absolutely, completely custom cables for the board. Normally I got my workbench, soldering iron. I go all in on the custom cable making, And that's really important, especially on the more complicated builds. But right now, and here we are, that's like literally 4 millimeters too short. Right now, I'm just going with cables that I have made and soldered. Really good cables. Cables that seem to never fail, which is awesome. Oh, that might do it. So I'm just going with cables I already have, because there's no way I have time between now and leaving to start building cables again. Oof, that is really tight. So many things on the back here. Like you see, I've got that cable in there and it's really tight. It might just work, but then it completely covers the power spot. And it may also rub up and down on the on-off switch. Like there's all these tiny things to consider. It seems like such a silly thing, like, oh, 4 pedals and a tiny mono board. What could possibly be complicated about that? But when you want it to work and you want it not to fail, there really are a bunch of things that you want to be conscious of in the design of it. I'm going to see if I have another one that's even slightly longer than that. That's a no. Those are way too long. Of course, I just took that old board apart and all of those are kind of long. Damn it. Yeah. And I did. That's the other thing, when you don't know where anything is, which I don't, having just moved. I'm not clutching at straws here. I'm clutching at cables. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have a lot of pre-made cables that I made in the past. But my fear is that none of them are going to be quite the right length. And shit, I mean, it may force me to go make another one. Not right this minute, but it may force me to go make another one before I leave. Just to be, like, I hate doing a half-assed job. And this is not going to be a half-assed job, but it's not going to be, and I guess it's never perfect, but yeah, it would be nice if it was great, if it was a really great job. The other thing is threading some of this stuff underneath the board, potentially, yeah, and tucking a few things away. That could save us. Oh yeah, we may have just been saved. Interesting. And then now I've just realized yet another thing that's going to be super important is how I tuck everything up underneath the board, and also where I'm going to place the power supply. The power supply is going to go underneath, and it's going to have to go in the least, amongst the least amount of traffic in terms of what's poking through these holes. There are going to be power spots coming down through here, obviously, and a little cable tails like that. I'll do everything with zip ties and little plastic cable anchors. That'll make it really, really quite neat. And more important than neat, it will make it less prone to like catching that and ripping things out by mistake when I'm setting up on stage. Okay, I think we might have found our cable. That looks like it's going to work. So now, with that in mind, I think there's all, so many things coming up here. There's the element of which things are going to be trapped, essentially. There are going to be certain things that I will not have access to because everything is so tight. And I think the power supply to the preamp is going to be one of those things. Boom, tucked in there. Let me show you this piece by piece before I even get the stomp on there. This is what I'm doing. I'm making sure that, can you see this down here? Right, that we've got the power supply, which is underneath or behind the patch cable there. And those are both tucked down. And patch cable is partially running underneath. And the power supply, the power cable is completely running underneath. And like I said before, there are only 4 spots. And I need 2 of those for the stomp, and then I still have 3 9-volt pedals to power, so I'm going to have to split one. I'm not a massive fan of that, the daisy chaining thing, but I am going to have to split one. And it's not actually daisy chained, it's not one after the other. It's like a Y cable that comes out, so maybe that's a little better. I don't know, technically speaking. sure there's an electrician or an engineer watching saying, no, that's still shit. So let's get some dual lock on this stomp, and yeah, boom. And we'll be like 50% of the way there. I guess that's the other thing with doing this on a time lapse and then doing the voiceover afterwards. I can be so much more succinct. I guess it makes for a more compelling video. But this way, you get to see me sort of sweat and troubleshoot in real time, in the moment. I guess maybe that's the one thing that's attractive for people to watch. Who knows? I just kind of like listening to podcasts on in the background sometimes, where there's quite a lot going on, but you don't always have to be looking at it the whole time. I tend to listen to / watch all of my podcasts on YouTube if they're available there, because I do love that visual element. And boy, when I get this studio dialed in, I cannot wait for you guys to see what I'm planning in the studio here. Had an amazing conversation with I'll talk about them specifically once we get into the process, but it's a company that does audio treatment, and we're gonna like kind of pimp out this room and put, make different sets on different walls. It's gonna be really fun. The design thing is the bit that scares me the most. It's like shit, it's not going to be easy, quick, or cheap, and it's going to be quite permanent or quite specific to this room. So it's a lot. There's a lot at stake when you do it. But obviously, I think it's a great investment to just make the channel look great, and to, more importantly than anything, I think, make it possible to just sit down and work comfortably whenever more importantly, whenever I have time, which is actually more the bigger thing. I have it's not like, whenever I'm inspired. No, I'm inspired all the freaking time. I have so many ideas that I would like to execute. Okay, concentration moment here with the stomp. And 3, 2, 1. Okay. Wait a minute. Okay, great. That worked awesome. Great. We got sort of halfway there. Yeah, it's not that I'm short of ideas. I've got so many things I want to try. It's that thing of time, family, just other stuff, music related work that is very time consuming, and family obligations. And, I want to spend time with my wife and my kid. It's more about being able to execute when I do have the idea. And I think just having lights set up, I mean, you see it all the time on YouTube, right? If you're a nerd like me and you go look at these channels who do really good jobs of explaining their setups and how they design things and how and why things are functional. I love those channels. I love those explainer videos. And I definitely see why people do invest that much money in it and that much time, because it does make their process so much easier. And it's not like it changes who I am or what I do fundamentally, but it does make a nicer presentation, and it makes it easier for me to be more consistent. I think that's probably what I'm looking forward to the most. So let's go with the filter pedal, and it's going to be a little bit tricky, based on where the inputs and outputs are and the power. So the power is on the top of the vintage bass octave, so I'm going to have to tuck that around, and it's on the side of the bass envelope filter, right by the input there. I don't know if this old lens is going to want to focus, but that's the difference between these two pedals. One on top, one on the side. So I'm going to have to pop a couple of spots out of there to power that, and also get this mini cable. This is the real tiny cable that I made to connect these two side by side. Give you a little view of that. So that's how those two are going on a mini cable, and kind of offsetting it, actually pushing the cable down and offsetting it. That gets them really, really close to each other. And the little cable elbow, that little bend in the cable, will pop down through that hole in the middle of the pedal board. It's actually, it's kind of perfect. And then I'll plug in through the front. Normally through the side or through the back, but this one will be in through the front. That'll be interesting. I wonder what kind of challenges that will bring up, and whether I should have a right angle so I don't have this straight jack sticking out that maybe I could put my foot on and pull out by mistake. Ooh, I'm telling you, man, the simplest, tiniest boards often present some of the toughest problems. Okay, I need 2 more tiny pieces of door lock on the vintage bass octave. We're going to use the black one here. Perfect. And then I'm just dropping stuff everywhere. That's the thing, like being in this much of a mess right now, having just moved into this new place, reminds me of how important it is and how worth it is going to be to really build this studio out. And I don't know if you heard the last episode of the podcast. This is really the first time I'm going to be able to do that ever in my career, like to have the home space really purpose built. So I think that makes it a little bit more exciting. The older you get, you don't get so many firsts. I guess next week I've never played a festival on the ocean in the desert in Morocco, so that's gonna be a first. That's gonna be freaking awesome. I hope it is, because it's like 38 hours of travel round trip to get there. But yeah, you don't get too many firsts the older you get, and one like this where I get to have a really nice workspace, especially because I love the work, is really, it just makes it really special. It makes everything I've been doing to this point really, really worthwhile. So I think it's important to talk about that. Okay, this is a tough one to get these last 2 pedals in, because they have to be placed, at least I figure they have to be placed together at the same time whilst plugged in to each other, to get the best placement and to save the most space. Can't wait to hold this thing up for you guys in a second, so you actually get the first proper view of what is going on here. Okay, so I'm going to place the filter first. We're going to tuck the... Oh, this is not easy. Shoot. Okay, we're going to place that square in the middle, leaving space for the power. Boom! All right, that's it. They're all in place. Let's do the first reveal of what the top of the board looks like. There you go. Oh, man, I think that looks kind of cool, actually. Get it in the light the right way. Where's my light? There's a big old light up here. Yeah, I think that's going to be really useful. I've already played the sounds. I've played the pedals in this order, and they definitely work for what I'm doing for the music. I gotta say, I'm not crazy about the clicky buttons. I do wish that they were silent, like the stomp. I've talked about that a little bit on the channel before. Some people have chimed in about, oh, well, there's this, that, and the other thing, and I know there are some reasons why not, and why people don't use them here and there, but man, if you're a pedal builder out there and you have the choice, please use the silent ones. The clack is getting old. It makes me feel old, actually. Okay, so here we go. Let's patch these things in. As our last little does it fit, is it too long type of situation. I think, actually, don't tell me. Right out the gate, perfect length. Oh, come on. Okay, we're gonna have to do some... Oh, no, not perfect length. Okay, I was getting way too excited there. All right, let's try one that's just a few mil longer. Yeah, I guess that's gonna work. Oh yeah, that's gonna work perfect. Okay. That's the other thing, like keeping the back of the pedal board clean, like as clean as possible. Like, look at that right now. There's no fat on there at all. Like everything is, we get it in the light. There you go. Like everything is pretty dialed on the back there. I don't have the power in the stomp yet. That'll be the only other thing to go in the back of the board. But just having that clean, and the less you can like catch something and pull it out, or guitar player walks by and kicks your pedal board, or Bob Reynolds walks backwards and steps on it, as he has done so many times over the years. We've played on some pretty small ass stages, and he has whatever. I'm not mad at him about it. It's actually quite funny to me that it has happened several times, and it's always quite a shock to him. It's always like, oh shit, Now we got to find some space for the power here. Maybe I should have thought about that. The stomp power. There we go. Is this our first fuck up, really? Be quite a big one if it was. No, there's space. Perfect. Okay, so there we go. That's it for the back of the board. There's only that one little yellow plug that I had to add there, and it's a really clean rear end. Yes, lovely. Quite a clean arse. The tidying job will come underneath. That would be a disaster. I'm not going to make you sit through that at all. I think we might be reaching our patience threshold here with pedal board build. Anyway, let's just talk quickly about the power, because that's really the only thing left to do. The plan is to also put it on dual lock and put it underneath the board somewhere out of the way. I could have drilled it. Could have drilled through the board and used the little Allen bolt to clamp it in place, but there's plenty of space under here, and it fits flush, like really nicely flush under the board. So I'll just get some dual lock, clip it in there, and then I'll leave this side here, this line to put little cable anchors. I'll clean this with some rubbing alcohol, get it nice and clean. I did that to the top of the board, but did I? No, I didn't actually. Shit, I just ripped the... Okay, well, let's see how long that lasts, having not cleaned it. But I will do it to the underside of the board now, I'm remembering. And then I'll clip in the cable anchors, and we'll be done. That's it. So not a complicated board. Now, one thing that occurred to me, I'm going to actually sit down and relax for a second here. One thing that occurred to me that I wanted to share with you was sort of the jigsaw puzzle, the Tetrising of it all, and how some of the tasks were kind of complete already. Like, I didn't have to do that much dual lock, for instance. And it struck me earlier on as I was planning. I was like, I'm going to do the podcast on this. Let's talk about the pedal board in real time. It struck me as I was thinking that, like, oh yeah, most of the times when we come to build a pedal board, it's all kind of like some things are there, some things. It's not like we just go to the store and buy everything from scratch every time we build a board. You know, if you're a super pedal nerd, maybe you have a few different boards around, you rip things off, you rebuild them like me. Maybe it is your first board. Maybe you're going out there picking things up for the first time, but you probably already have a couple of pedals, I'm going to guess, you know. And for people who it's the first time, amazing. Welcome to the rest of your life. It never ends. And I don't doubt that in a month I'll rip this whole thing apart and redo it. But it would be nice. Here's the thing. I'm getting older now. It would be nice to start building pedal boards and leaving them the way they are. Like really building nice utility boards like this and just having them. Of course, there are always going to be the things, the artistic things where it's my gig and I want to change things out. And sometimes I want this crazy granular delay. And then other times I want this synth setup with filters and all kinds of stuff. So I don't think that mixing and matching and changing around thing will ever go away, but it would be nice to have like a shelf full of utility boards that I kind of keep and don't have to mess with. And just the fact that it's going in here, this little bag, it's like a shoe bag or something, right? Like shit, in a pinch I'd carry shoes in here. It's this Mono Tick 2.0. Not a sponsor of nobody's sponsoring this video, by the way. I'm not getting paid for any of this. It's my dime, my time, my dime. I bought this used, this mono bag. I bought the mono board used when I was at Sweetwater in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And I guess some of these pedals people have thrown me, these MXR pedals I've had for free over the years. And the Stomp thing I've been playing for so long. Yeah, needless to say, nobody's sponsoring the video. I have to be very clear about that. I still have the paid review video idea in mind. I think that might be one of the first things I do when I get this place built out and really looking like a YouTube studio. Because that is a very interesting topic, something I have been thinking about, as I've mentioned before in the podcast, something I continue to think about and refine and research and make sure I can make my point and sort of tell the story of what I think, at least my opinion of what is going on, what I think is going on with paid reviews, and tell it eloquently and give people good information. So that's on my mind. The pedal board, that wasn't too painful. What have we been rolling here? 45 minutes? Not too painful at all. And like with only 4 pedals, there's not a lot of work to do. The real work is the tidying up underneath. And like I said, not going to bore you with that. Really appreciate you hanging out. And I mentioned in the last video, I can't remember, that I might be bringing the vlog back momentarily. I did just dive into all the boxes marked video equipment. I found the DJI mobile gimbal. I grabbed my drone, the Mavic. I grabbed a few things, the DJI mics. It might happen in Morocco. It feels like a really fun story to tell. The insane travel that it's going to be, the great gig that I hope it is going to be, all the great friends that I'm going to see there. I know Mike League is going to be there, for instance, with Bocante, and they're going to be releasing other incredible Moroccan musicians that I've never heard before. Could be a really cool story to tell. So I am considering it. I can't promise anything yet, but I did tease that in the last episode. And it's definitely something on my mind. If I can get a couple of hours and see if the setup works. It's been a long time since I've vlogged anything. The setup in general has changed and it's got a lot more streamlined, so maybe it'll work better. Let's see. Can't promise coffee drinkers anything right now, but I definitely think it would be a fun thing to do, especially for this gig. All right. Holy crap. That's it. Pedalboard's done, and I will report back as soon as I get back from Morocco with sound, with video. I'll let you know how it all went. That's it. Appreciate you spending some time with me. Don't forget, all the books are linked below in the description of the video. I'll see you on the next one.